A centuries-old secret hidden within stone walls beneath an ordinary farmhouse. Ancient symbols that would draw renowned historians and archaeological teams from 5 continents to a sleepy rural town. All set in motion by one exhausted single mother's desperate search for an affordable home for her children, and the mysterious locked cellar that contained what experts now describe as the most significant pre-colonial discovery in American history. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn rain pounded against the windows of Olivia Mercer's small 2-bedroom apartment as she stared at the eviction notice clutched in her trembling hands. 45 days. After 6 years in the same building, the property had been sold to developers planning luxury condominiums, and she and her 2 children had just 45 days to find a new home in a housing market that had become impossible for a family surviving on a single income. At 39, Olivia had created what she believed was a stable life after her divorce 4 years earlier. Her position as research librarian at the County Historical Society wasn't glamorous, but it had provided enough for rent, basic expenses, and even modest college savings for the kids. But 8 months ago, budget cuts had eliminated her position, and the part-time cataloging work she'd secured paid barely half her former salary. "Mom, is everything okay?" Lily's voice pulled Olivia from her worried thoughts. At 13, her daughter was perceptive enough to read the tension in her mother's face. "We need to talk," Olivia said, gathering Lily and 9-year-old Max at their small kitchen table. "The building's being sold, and we need to find a new place to live. Can we get a house with a backyard?" Max asked immediately, his face lighting up. Their apartment's tiny balcony had never been enough for his boundless energy. "Maybe not in the city," Olivia admitted, "but I've been looking into other options." Those other options consumed her every waking moment over the next 2 weeks. Rental prices had skyrocketed throughout the metro area. Each property search grew more desperate as affordable apartments showed waiting lists, dozens of names long. With time running short, Olivia expanded her search to increasingly distant communities. That's when she saw it. A listing so out of place among the sleek apartment advertisements that she almost scrolled past. A 2-story farmhouse on 6 acres located in Crestfall, a small town just over 2 hours from the city. The asking price was so low that Olivia initially assumed it was either a scam or had a decimal point in the wrong place. The listing included only 4 grainy photos, a distant exterior shot showing a weathered farmhouse with peeling paint, a glimpse of a kitchen with outdated appliances, an overgrown yard with what might have once been a garden, and an old barn in the background. The description was sparse: historic Blackwood farmhouse circa 1865, needs TLC, sold as is, cash offers preferred. Under normal circumstances, Olivia would never have considered such a remote property. Her life, the children's schools, her professional network, everything was in the city. But circumstances were far from normal, and the desperate reality of their situation forced her to consider options that would have been unthinkable just months earlier. "I found something," she told the children that evening, showing them the listing on her laptop. "It's different from what we're used to." "It looks haunted," Lily said, wrinkling her nose at the shadowy exterior photo. "It looks like an adventure," Max countered, already imagining exploration and discovery. Olivia had already calculated the numbers. Between her savings, a loan from her sister, and the severance package she'd received, she could just manage a cash offer. It would leave them with a razor-thin financial margin, but they would have a roof over their heads, one that couldn't be sold out from under them again. The real estate agent sounded shocked when Olivia called the next day. "The Blackwood place? You actually want to see it?" The property had been on the market for over 2 years with no serious interest. Olivia scheduled a viewing for the weekend. The 2-hour drive to Crestfall, took them through increasingly rural landscapes until they reached a town that seemed frozen in time. The main street featured a handful of small businesses, a grocery, a hardware store, a diner, and a post office surrounded by scattered houses and farmland. "People actually live here?" Lily asked, unable to imagine life so far from shopping malls and coffee shops. The real estate agent, Mrs. Patterson, met them at the town's only gas station. "It's about 3 miles outside town," she explained, as they followed her car down winding country roads. "Been empty since Eleanor Blackwood passed, must be 5 years now. The county's been maintaining the property taxes, but they're eager to get it off their books." When they finally pulled into the long gravel driveway, Olivia's heart sank. The listing photos had been generous. The 2-story farmhouse had clearly been handsome once, with a broad front porch and elegant proportions. But years of neglect had taken their toll. Paint peeled from the wooden siding in long strips. Several windows were cracked or boarded over, and the porch roof had partially collapsed on one side. "It's a bit rough around the edges," Mrs. Patterson admitted, struggling with the front door key, "but the county inspector says the foundation and main structure are sound. It's mostly cosmetic work needed." Olivia had renovated enough apartments to know cosmetic work rarely stayed cosmetic once you started pulling at loose threads. Still, they had driven 2 hours, and they needed to see what they were dealing with. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The interior was a time capsule. Furniture draped in yellowed sheets, bookshelves sagging under the weight of hundreds of volumes, dust motes dancing in the shafts of light that penetrated the grimy windows. But beneath the neglect were glimpses of quality craftsmanship: hardwood floors, intricate moldings, a carved staircase banister that spoke of an era when homes were built to last generations. Eleanor Blackwood was some kind of historian, Mrs. Patterson explained as they toured the ground floor. Taught at the State University until she retired. Bit of a recluse in her later years, according to locals. No family came forward after she passed, so eventually the property went to the county. "What are these?" Max asked, pointing to peculiar symbols carved into the wooden mantelpiece above the fireplace. "Oh, the house has all sorts of odd details like that," Mrs. Patterson replied dismissively. "Eleanor was interested in Native American history, I believe. She added her own touches over the years." While Lily inspected the vintage kitchen with its ancient appliances and Max explored the parlor, Olivia tried to assess the scope of what would be needed. New roof, certainly. Electrical would need updating. Plumbing was anyone's guess. But the walls seemed straight, the floors didn't sag, and despite the musty odor, she detected no smell of rot or mold. "There's one more thing," Mrs. Patterson said, leading them to a heavy wooden door at the end of the main hallway. "The cellar. Unfortunately, I don't have the key for this door. County workers who cleared the property after Eleanor's death couldn't locate it. They said there's nothing down there but her workshop and storage, so they didn't bother forcing the lock." Olivia examined the door with interest. Unlike the weathered interior doors throughout the house, this one appeared solid and well-maintained, with an ornate iron lock that looked more appropriate for a medieval church than a farmhouse. "How much?" Olivia asked as they concluded the tour. Mrs. Patterson named a figure that, while still the lowest property price Olivia had encountered in months of searching, seemed ambitious given the condition. "Half that," Olivia countered, "and I can close with cash in 3 weeks." Mrs. Patterson's eyebrows shot up. "You're serious?" "I mean, I'll have to take it to the county administrator, but—" "I'm serious," Olivia confirmed. "But I need to know today." 2 frantic weeks followed. Paperwork, bank transfers, hurried goodbyes to city friends, and rushed packing of their apartment. Olivia found temporary remote work doing data entry to supplement their dwindling funds. Lily and Max were enrolled in Crestfall's small school system for the fall term, beginning in 4 weeks. It wasn't until the autumn wind rattled the windows of Olivia's aging Honda as they pulled into the overgrown driveway, now officially their driveway, that the reality of what she had done truly hit her. Her entire financial safety net had been converted into this dilapidated structure and 6 acres of unkempt land, 2 hours from anything familiar. "Mom, is this really it?" asked Lily, peering through the rain-streaked window at the weathered house. "That's what the deed says. 327 Hillcrest Road," Olivia confirmed, trying to hide her own uncertainty. "It's awesome," declared Max, already jumping out of the car despite the drizzling rain. As they unloaded the essentials they'd brought for their first night, a pickup truck pulled alongside them. An elderly woman in faded overalls approached, carrying a basket covered with a checkered cloth. "Thought you might be arriving today," she called over the sound of the rain. "Sarah Tanner. I'm your nearest neighbor, about a quarter-mile down the road." Sarah offered a basket of homemade bread, preserves, and a thermos of hot soup as a welcome gift. In her late 70s, with silver hair pulled back in a practical braid and hands that showed decades of farming work, she had the direct manner of someone accustomed to rural self-sufficiency. "Didn't expect anyone would buy the old Blackwood place," she said, helping them carry supplies onto the covered portion of the porch. "Been empty since Eleanor passed. Most folks figured it would fall down before someone took it on." "The price was right," Olivia admitted, not wanting to reveal just how desperate their situation had been. Sarah's expression softened with understanding. "Well, the bones are good. House like this was built to last. Just needs someone to care for it again." She helped them force open a side entrance where the door seemed less swollen with moisture. Inside, the musty air carried decades of neglect, but Olivia was relieved to see that the structure indeed seemed sound. "I knew Eleanor for nearly 40 years, Sarah explained as they explored the ground floor. "Brilliant woman, eccentric especially in her later years, but kind. Used to help local farmers with their paperwork, translate historical documents for the town museum, never charged a penny." "The real estate agent mentioned she was a historian," Olivia said, watching as Max and Lily explored the front rooms, pulling sheets off furniture and opening cabinets. "Native American studies primarily, indigenous cultures of the Northeast. Had quite a reputation in academic circles, I gather, though you'd never know it to talk to her. After she retired from the university, she spent most of her time in the cellar." "The cellar?" Olivia asked, noticing how both children immediately perked up at the mention. "Her workshop," she called it, her research chamber. "Never let anyone down there, not even me, and I brought her meals when the weather was bad." Sarah pointed to the heavy wooden door at the end of the hallway. "That's the entrance, though it was always locked when I came by." Olivia approached the door, running her fingers over the intricate iron lock. "The county couldn't find the key," Sarah shrugged. "Eleanor was very particular about her privacy. Used to joke that she was guarding ancient secrets." She smiled at the memory. "I always figured she just didn't want anyone disturbing her papers." When Sarah left, promising to return the next day with more practical supplies and information about getting the utilities properly connected, the family began the process of making the house minimally habitable for the night. Olivia focused on cleaning the kitchen and a small bedroom on the ground floor, where they could all sleep until they properly cleaned the upstairs. Lily, despite her initial skepticism about the move, took charge of organizing their supplies and making a list of immediate necessities. Max, predictably, saw the whole situation as an adventure and spent his time exploring every corner of the house that Olivia deemed safe. "Mom, look what I found," he called from what appeared to be a former study. The room contained floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with dusty volumes, a massive oak desk, and a faded oriental rug. Max pointed to an open drawer where he discovered a ring of ancient-looking iron keys. "Good find, Max," Olivia said, taking the heavy ring. 6 keys hung from it, each with a different intricate pattern on its head symbols that looked distinctly Native American, similar to the carvings on the fireplace mantel. "Maybe one opens the cellar door," Lily suggested, having warmed to the mystery despite herself. "We'll try them tomorrow when we have proper lighting," Olivia decided, setting the keys aside. "Let's focus on getting some areas cleaned enough to sleep tonight." As evening fell, they ate Sarah's soup and bread at a kitchen table they'd wiped down, using camping lanterns for light until they could check the electrical system properly. Olivia had insisted on bringing sleeping bags for their first night, unsure about the condition of any bedding left in the house. "What do you think is in the cellar?" Max asked as they prepared for bed in the small ground floor bedroom. "Probably just books and papers," Olivia replied, though she couldn't help wondering herself. Why would a retired history professor be so secretive about her workspace? "I bet it's treasure," Max insisted. "Or maybe a secret laboratory where she made discoveries the world wasn't ready for. Or maybe just a bunch of moldy boxes and spiders," Lily countered, though her tone lacked conviction. After the children had finally fallen asleep, exhausted from the move and excitement, Olivia found herself unable to rest. The house creaked and settled around them, making unfamiliar noises that would take time to get used to. Through the window, the moonlight cast strange shadows from the gnarled apple trees in the overgrown orchard behind the house. Her gaze fell on the ring of keys they'd discovered. Curiosity finally overcoming caution, she took the lantern and made her way down the hallway to the cellar door, driven by an inexplicable need to know what lay beyond it. The heavy oak door had held up better than much of the house, the wood still solid and the ornate hinges free from rust. The iron lock was a work of craftsmanship itself, with intricate patterns swirling around a keyhole that seemed larger than modern equivalents. Olivia examined the keys in the lantern light. Each had a different symbol on its head: a spiral, a thunderbird, what appeared to be rain clouds, a tree, a sun, and a key with a symbol she couldn't quite identify, something like interwoven vines. The first key, the one with the spiral, didn't fit the lock. Neither did the thunderbird or the rain clouds. The tree key entered the lock, but wouldn't turn. On the 5th attempt, the sun key slid into the lock smoothly, but also refused to turn. "One more," Olivia muttered to herself, selecting the key with the interwoven vine symbol. This one entered the lock with a satisfying precision that the others had lacked. When she turned it, the mechanism moved smoothly, and she heard the distinct sound of heavy bolts retracting inside the door. Heart racing with a mixture of triumph and inexplicable apprehension, Olivia pushed against the door. It swung inward slowly, revealing a darkness deeper than the shadows of the hallway. Behind her, the air that escaped from the opening felt cool and carried, a scent that was not the expected mustiness of a long-closed cellar, but something else: stone, paper, and a hint of what might have been sage or sweetgrass. Her lantern illuminated a steep staircase of stone, not wood as would be expected in a farmhouse of this age. The steps descended at a sharp angle before curving out of sight. The walls of the stairwell appeared to be lined with stones fitted together with remarkable precision, more like the construction of an ancient temple than a rural American home. Olivia hesitated at the threshold. Everything about the cellar entrance felt out of place, too solid, too carefully constructed, too old. Yet something about it called to her, a mystery waiting to be unraveled just beyond the reach of her lantern light. Gathering her courage, she began to descend the steps carefully. The stones felt solid underfoot, showing none of the wear or unevenness that might be expected in a staircase of apparent age. She trailed her free hand along the wall for balance and found the stones cool but not damp. The staircase curved to the right as it descended, and Olivia estimated she had gone down about 15 steps when she reached a small landing. From here, the stairs continued downward at a gentler angle. What struck her as odd was that she must now be well below what should be the normal cellar level of a farmhouse. The foundation simply shouldn't extend this deep. Another 10 steps down, the staircase ended at another heavy door. This one made of dark wood, reinforced with iron bands. Unlike the door above, this one stood slightly ajar, a sliver of absolute darkness visible through the gap. Olivia paused, listening intently. The silence was absolute, not even the sounds of the house above reaching this depth. With a deep breath, she pushed the door open wider and raised her lantern to illuminate what lay beyond. What the light revealed caused her to gasp audibly, the sound echoing in the space before her. She was not looking at a cellar workshop as she had expected, but a large chamber with a vaulted ceiling, its walls lined with fitted stones similar to the staircase. Elaborate carvings covered the archways and support columns, depicting scenes and symbols that her untrained eye nevertheless recognized as distinctly indigenous in style. The center of the chamber was dominated by a large stone table or altar. Its surface was covered with objects she couldn't immediately identify. Around the perimeter stood wooden cabinets, glass-fronted cases containing books and artifacts, and what appeared to be maps or charts mounted on the walls. Olivia stepped fully into the chamber, her lantern casting shifting shadows that made the carvings seem to move. This was no historian's casual workshop. This was a meticulous recreation or perhaps preservation of what appeared to be a pre-colonial, indigenous sacred space, constructed with an attention to detail and authenticity that must have taken decades. As she approached the central stone table, the light revealed what lay upon it, an open manuscript, its pages illuminated with earth pigments and intricate designs that had not faded despite their apparent age. Surrounding it were instruments. She recognized from museum visits a ceremonial pipe, what appeared to be divination tools of bone and shell, copper ornaments with geometric patterns. But what truly caught her attention was a circular stone embedded in the floor near the table. About 3 feet in diameter, its surface was carved with concentric rings of symbols, some resembling the ones on the keys she had used. At the very center was a small depression that appeared to be shaped to receive something, an object roughly the size of her palm. Beside the stone table sat a modern desk with an incongruously contemporary laptop computer. Next to it lay a leather-bound journal with a bookmark protruding from its pages. Olivia set down her lantern and picked up the journal, drawn by an inexplicable certainty that it would contain explanations for this extraordinary chamber. The journal's first pages contained entries dated 5 years earlier in a precise handwriting she assumed belonged to Eleanor Blackwood. The opening line sent a chill down her spine. After 25 years of searching, I have finally found conclusive evidence. The legends were not mere folklore. The sacred chamber of the Sky People was real, and its remnants lie directly beneath this property. What I initially mistook for an unusual foundation when I purchased this house in 1985 was in fact the upper section of a structure that predates European contact by centuries. Indigenous presence in this region is now proven to be far more sophisticated and complex than the accepted historical record acknowledges. Olivia's hands trembled as she turned the pages, skimming entries that documented Eleanor's painstaking excavation and restoration of the chamber, her translations of symbols and texts found within the walls, and her increasingly excited discoveries about what she believed was a sacred site established by an ancient indigenous civilization, a legend long dismissed by mainstream historians. The final entry, dated just a week before Eleanor's death, according to Sarah's timeline, contained a passage that made Olivia's breath catch. The center stone is the final piece. Once placed in the central node, it should complete the celestial alignment. If my translations are correct, it will reveal the locations of the other 6 sites across the eastern woodlands. I've hidden it where only a true seeker would think to look. When the right person comes, they will understand its significance. Until then, the chamber remains sealed and its secrets protected. Olivia lowered the journal, her mind racing. Centerstone? 6 other sites. What had Eleanor Blackwood actually discovered beneath her farmhouse? She raised the lantern again, turning slowly to take in the full chamber. What she had initially taken for decorative carvings on the walls now revealed themselves as maps coastlines. She recognized as the eastern seaboard, but with markings and symbols scattered across the landscape in a deliberate pattern. As she examined the nearest wall section more carefully, she noticed a series of inscriptions in a language she didn't recognize. Below these inscriptions was a line of text that sent another shock through her system. This one written in modern English in what she now recognized as Eleanor's handwriting. When 7 become 1, the lost shall be found. The Sky People await the return of their knowledge. Olivia didn't know how long she stood there, absorbing the implications of what she was seeing. This wasn't just an eccentric professor's hobby project. The construction was too extensive, too authentic. The materials and methods used to create this underground chamber would have cost a fortune and required expertise beyond a single person's capabilities. Yet here it was, hidden beneath an ordinary farmhouse in rural America, apparently documenting a historical connection between ancient, indigenous cultures and celestial phenomena that would rewrite history books if proven authentic. A sudden noise from above startled her, a creaking floorboard that reminded her she had left her children sleeping upstairs. Reluctantly, but knowing she needed time to process what she'd discovered, Olivia decided to return to the main house. She carefully closed the journal and placed it exactly where she had found it, an instinctive respect for the precision with which everything in the chamber was arranged guiding her actions. As she climbed the stairs and secured the cellar door, behind her, Olivia's mind was already racing with questions. Should she report this discovery? To whom? Would anyone even believe what lay beneath their new home without seeing it? She checked on Lily and Max, finding them still soundly asleep, unaware that their mother had just potentially stumbled upon what might be one of the most significant archaeological discoveries in North America. Returning to her sleeping bag, Olivia knew sleep would be impossible now. She had bought this house out of financial desperation, seeing it as nothing more than affordable shelter during a difficult time in their lives. Now she found herself the custodian of what might be a historical treasure of immeasurable value. What Olivia couldn't possibly know as she finally drifted into an uneasy sleep was that her impulsive purchase of a shabby farmhouse was about to draw the attention of archaeologists, historians, and indigenous cultural experts from across the globe to her doorstep, and that the greatest secrets of Eleanor Blackwood's underground chamber had yet to reveal themselves. Olivia had come seeking shelter for her family. Instead, she had found a mystery that spanned centuries, waiting patiently in the darkness beneath her new home, a mystery that would soon transform not only her understanding of history, but her entire life. Artifact. I've created the first part of your YouTube script following the structure of the inspirational video while creating a completely new and original story. The script introduces Olivia Mercer, a single mother who buys a remote farmhouse out of necessity and discovers a mysterious chamber beneath it that appears to be connected to ancient indigenous history. Olivia woke to sunlight streaming through uncurtained windows and the sound of Max's excited voice outside. For a moment she was disoriented, her mind struggling to reconcile the unfamiliar surroundings with memories of the previous night. Had she really discovered an ancient chamber beneath the farmhouse, or had exhaustion conjured an elaborate dream? She found Lily in the kitchen attempting to clean decades of dust from the countertops with supplies they brought from the apartment. Max is exploring the orchard, Lily explained. Her earlier reluctance about the move seemed replaced by pragmatic acceptance. There's an old well house back there that he's convinced contains treasure. Olivia managed a smile despite her fatigue. Let's hope there's less treasure and more working plumbing in this house. Did you sleep okay? Better than I expected, Lily admitted. This place is weird, but it feels I don't know, solid somehow. She paused, studying her mother's face. You look like you barely slept. Is everything okay? Just processing. Everything, Olivia replied, unwilling to share her nocturnal discovery until she'd verified it in daylight. There's a lot to take in. After breakfast of granola bars and bottled water, Olivia suggested they make a supply run to town. Privately, she needed time to think, to plan her next steps regarding what lay beneath their new home. The logical part of her, the researcher who had spent years organizing and cataloging historical materials, knew she should document everything properly before proceeding further. In Crestfall's small grocery store, they filled their cart with cleaning supplies, basic food staples, and hardware necessities. Olivia noticed several locals eyeing them with undisguised curiosity. You're the folks who bought the Blackwood place, aren't you? Asked the cashier as she rang up their purchases. Her name tag identified her as Dorothy, and her tone suggested genuine interest rather than simple nosiness. Word travels fast, Olivia observed with a tired smile. Small town, Dorothy replied with a shrug. Plus, nobody's bought property around here in years, let alone the old professor's place. Folks are curious, is all. Was Professor Blackwood well known locally? Olivia asked casually, seizing the opportunity to gather information. Oh, everybody knew Eleanor, Dorothy confirmed, bagging their groceries. Kept to herself mostly, but was always willing to help when asked. Translated. Old family documents, wrote letters for folks who needed assistance with official business. Had quite a reputation in academic circles too, from what I understand. Had visitors from universities sometimes, though she didn't seem to enjoy those much. What did she teach exactly? Olivia pressed. Native American studies, I believe. Indigenous cultures, ancient languages, that sort of thing. Used to joke that she knew more about pre-colonial sacred sites than she did about modern America. Dorothy smiled at the memory. Funny thing is, after she retired, she got even more intense about her research. Sarah Tanner would tell us she'd stay in that cellar for days at a time. Called it her sacred work. Olivia's heart quickened at this confirmation of Eleanor's obsession. Did anyone ever see this work? Dorothy shook her head. Not that I know of. Eleanor was private about it. There were rumors, of course. Some said she was documenting lost indigenous knowledge. Others thought she was translating ancient texts. Small towns love their mysteries. As they loaded supplies into the car, Olivia noticed Lily watching her with a thoughtful expression. At 13, her daughter had developed an uncanny ability to sense when adults were withholding information. You know something about the cellar, don't you? Lily asked directly as they drove back toward the farmhouse. You tried the keys last night. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. I did, and I found something unexpected. Treasure? Max piped up from the back seat, immediately attentive. Not exactly, Olivia replied carefully. More like a research space, but unusual. I need to examine it more carefully before jumping to conclusions. Can we see it? Lily asked, her academic curiosity, a trait she'd inherited from her mother, clearly piqued. Olivia considered the question. The chamber hadn't appeared dangerous, just puzzling, and perhaps additional eyes would provide perspective she might miss on her own. After lunch, she decided. Once we've unloaded the supplies. When they returned to the farmhouse, they found Sarah Tanner waiting on the porch with an elderly man in overalls, whom she introduced as her brother Frank. He had brought his pickup truck, loaded with practical housewarming gifts, a stack of seasoned firewood, a barely used propane heater, and most precious of all, a small gas-powered generator. Power company says they can reconnect service tomorrow, Frank explained as he showed Olivia how to operate the generator. This should get you through tonight. Enough to run some lights and maybe that old refrigerator, if it still works. This is incredibly kind, Olivia said, Genuinely touched by the neighborly gesture, Frank waved away her thanks. Small towns look after their own, even the newcomers. Sarah tells me you've got young ones to care for. Can't have them freezing in the September chill. While Max enthusiastically helped Frank unload firewood and Lily worked on making the kitchen functional, Sarah drew Olivia aside. "Did you find it?" the older woman asked quietly, her weathered face impossible to read. Olivia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn air. "Find what?" "The chamber." Sarah's voice held no question, only certainty. "Eleanor's workshop beneath the house." Olivia hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "You knew about it?" "Not the details. Eleanor never showed me. Never showed anyone, as far as I know. But she talked about it sometimes, especially in her final years, when her health was failing." Sarah's eyes held Olivia's steadily. She said she was waiting for the right person to continue her work, someone who would understand its importance. Olivia thought of the improbable chain of events that had led her family to this remote farmhouse. Her job loss, the apartment eviction, the housing crisis that had made conventional options impossible. Coincidence, surely, not destiny. "I'm just a librarian who needed affordable housing," she said firmly. Sarah's smile held gentle understanding. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you're exactly where you need to be." She glanced toward Frank, who was showing Max how to properly stack firewood. "My brother and we promised Eleanor we'd watch over this place until the right person came. We've kept that promise for 5 years." Before Olivia could respond, Frank called over to ask about checking the farmhouse's ancient water heater, and the moment for further questions passed. But as the siblings departed after several hours of practical assistance, Sarah pressed something into Olivia's hand, a small leather pouch that felt heavy for its size. "Eleanor left this with me," she said quietly. "Said to give it to whoever found the chamber." Inside their newly functional kitchen, Olivia waited until the children were occupied with unpacking before opening the pouch. It contained a small object wrapped in velvet cloth. Unwrapping it carefully, she revealed a stone disc approximately 3 inches in diameter and half an inch thick. One side was perfectly smooth, while the other was intricately carved with symbols similar to those she had seen in the underground chamber. Concentric circles of what appeared to be an ancient script surrounding a central design that resembled a stylized sun with rays forming a perfect circle. Recognition dawned immediately. This must be the center stone mentioned in Eleanor's journal, the object meant to fit into the circular depression in the chamber floor. Olivia carefully rewrapped it and tucked it into her pocket, its weight feeling suddenly significant beyond its physical presence. After a lunch of sandwiches made with supplies from their shopping trip, Olivia fulfilled her promise to show the children the chamber. Their reactions upon seeing the stone staircase and vaulted underground room mirrored her own amazement from the night before. "This can't be part of the original farmhouse," Lily declared, running her fingers over the precisely fitted stonework. "The construction techniques are all wrong." "It wasn't," Olivia confirmed, showing them Eleanor's journal. According to her notes, the farmhouse was built on top of something much older. She spent decades excavating and restoring this chamber. Max was drawn to the maps carved into the walls, tracing the unfamiliar markings with fascination. "What are all these symbols?" "They look like X marks the spot on a treasure map." "That might not be far off," Olivia admitted. Eleanor believed they marked the locations of other sites similar to this one across the eastern woodlands. Lily, ever the practical one, was examining the modern desk with its laptop and research materials. "Do you think the computer still works?" "There might be more information stored on it." "Possibly, if we can get power down here," Olivia said. "But for now, let's focus on understanding what we're looking at." The family spent the afternoon documenting the chamber, measuring its dimensions, photographing the wall carvings and artifacts, and carefully examining Eleanor's journal and loose research notes. Olivia was impressed by her children's methodical approach, especially Lily's insistence on creating a proper inventory of everything they found. The journal revealed Eleanor's growing certainty that she had discovered evidence of a sophisticated, pre-colonial indigenous civilization, specifically a sacred site connected to celestial observations and spiritual practices. While various archaeologists had proposed theories about advanced astronomical knowledge among eastern woodland tribes, conclusive physical evidence had been limited. Eleanor, however, believed she had found that evidence not just artifacts, but an entire intact structure that predated European contact by centuries. More extraordinarily, her later journal entries suggested that this site was part of a network of similar locations across the region, connected in some way she was still trying to understand when she died. "Mom, look at this," Lily called, holding up a folder of photographs she'd found in one of the desk drawers. The images showed artifacts with distinct indigenous characteristics, carefully arranged and documented with measurement scales and location notes. She was conducting a proper archaeological investigation, Olivia realized, examining the methodical documentation. These are field notes worthy of a professional excavation. But why didn't she publish her findings? If she really found evidence of an advanced pre-colonial civilization, it would be revolutionary, Lily pointed out. Olivia turned to the final pages of Eleanor's journal, searching for answers. The entries became increasingly cryptic in the last months of her life, but certain passages stood out. The evidence must be presented as a complete system, not as isolated artifacts that could be dismissed as anomalies. The 7 sites form a pattern that cannot be explained by chance. Only when the center stone activates the celestial alignment will the full scope of what these ancient peoples achieved become undeniable. And later, academic politics has always been vicious. Too many careers and reputations are invested in the current historical narrative. Premature disclosure would lead to immediate dismissal of the evidence, or worse, appropriation by those who do not understand the sacred importance of these sites. She was waiting to find all 7 sites before going public, Olivia interpreted aloud. She wanted irrefutable evidence. As the afternoon light began to fade and the generator's fuel supply limited their use of portable lamps, they reluctantly left the chamber. Olivia secured the cellar door behind them, the weight of the stone disc still in her pocket, its purpose now clearer, but its significance still not fully understood. That evening, after a simple dinner and with Max already asleep in his sleeping bag, Olivia found Lily sitting on the creaking porch steps, staring at the night sky visible through breaks in the clouds. "You're thinking about the chamber," Olivia observed, sitting beside her daughter. Lily nodded. "If it's real, if Professor Blackwood really found what she claimed, it changes everything we know about pre-colonial history." "That's a big if," Olivia cautioned, though her own excitement was difficult to contain. "We need expert opinions, proper archaeological assessment. But you believe it, don't you?" Lily's perceptive gaze caught her mother's expression in the dim porch light. "You think she found something genuine?" Olivia considered her answer carefully. "I think Eleanor Blackwood was too meticulous, too methodical to have fabricated something like this. The construction alone would have required resources beyond what a single retired professor could reasonably access. So what do we do?" It was the question Olivia had been wrestling with since her first descent into the chamber. "We need to be careful," she said finally. "If this is as significant as it appears, it needs to be properly documented and protected. Amateur handling could damage or destroy valuable evidence." "We should contact a university," Lily suggested. "Get professional archaeologists involved." "That's the logical approach," Olivia agreed. "But Eleanor's concerns about academic politics give me pause. If we just call random experts, we could end up with people who dismiss the findings, or worse, damage the site trying to debunk it." They sat in companionable silence for a moment, the weight of their unexpected responsibility settling between them. We need someone who specializes in indigenous archaeology, Olivia decided. Someone with credibility but also an open mind. I'll make some calls tomorrow. The next day brought the promised reconnection of electricity to the farmhouse, allowing Olivia to power up her laptop and begin researching potential experts. It was a delicate balance finding someone prominent enough in the field to lend credibility to their findings, yet open-minded enough to fairly evaluate evidence that might contradict established historical narratives. After several hours of research, one name kept appearing in connection with innovative approaches to indigenous archaeology: Dr. Amara Redbird, professor of anthropology and Native American studies at Eastridge University. Her published papers showed a methodical, evidence-based approach to controversial historical claims, neither dismissing alternative theories outright nor accepting them without rigorous verification. More intriguingly, several of her recent publications specifically addressed celestial alignments in eastern woodland sacred sites and the potential for sophisticated astronomical knowledge among pre-colonial indigenous cultures. She was also herself a member of the Ojibwe tribe, bringing both academic credentials and cultural understanding to her work. A video of her guest lecture at an international archaeology conference showed a poised, authoritative woman in her 40s who spoke with both academic precision and genuine passion for historical discovery. "She seems perfect," Lily commented, watching the lecture video over Olivia's shoulder. "Should we email her?" Olivia shook her head. "This isn't something to put in an email that could be forwarded or shared. I think we need to call her directly." It took several attempts to navigate Eastridge University's phone system and reach Dr. Redbird's office. When Olivia finally got through, she was told by a teaching assistant that the professor was away at a field site in Ohio, but would return the following week. "Would you like to leave a message?" the assistant asked. "I should warn you that Dr. Redbird receives numerous claims about supposed evidence for advanced indigenous civilizations. She rarely has time to investigate personal collections." Olivia hesitated, aware of how her story might sound to academic ears. "Please tell her that Olivia Mercer has purchased Eleanor Blackwood's former property and has found something in her research chamber that she should see personally. It relates to the celestial alignment sites." There was a pause on the line. "Did you say Eleanor Blackwood?" "Yes, she was a professor of Native American studies. This was her home. One moment, please." The line went silent briefly before the assistant returned. "Ms. Mercer, Dr. Redbird has just happened to call in for messages. She'd like to speak with you directly. Can you hold?" Moments later, a clear, authoritative voice came on the line. "This is Amara Redbird. You found Eleanor Blackwood's research?" "Yes," Olivia confirmed, surprised by the immediacy of the response. "I recently purchased her farmhouse. There's an underground chamber with extensive documentation about what she believed was evidence of a pre-colonial sacred site network. Is the chamber intact? Has anything been removed or disturbed?" The questions came rapidly, with an urgency that suggested far more than casual interest. "It's exactly as she left it, as far as we can tell. We've only documented what we found. Nothing's been moved." A brief silence followed. Ms. Mercer, Eleanor Blackwood was one of the most brilliant indigenous studies scholars of her generation. Her sudden withdrawal from academic life 5 years ago was a significant loss to the field. Many of us wondered what research had consumed her so completely. "You knew her?" Olivia asked. "I was a doctoral student when she was still teaching. She was a mentor briefly before she retired." Dr. Redbird's voice held a mixture of respect and what might have been regret. Her theories about advanced pre-colonial celestial knowledge were controversial, but her methodology was impeccable. If she believed she found conclusive evidence, she trailed off, then continued with renewed focus. "I'm cutting my field work short. I can be in Crestfall the day after tomorrow. Would you be willing to show me what you found?" Olivia felt simultaneous relief and apprehension. This was moving faster than she had anticipated. Yes, of course. But I should mention that Professor Blackwood's notes indicate this site is part of a larger pattern, 7 locations across the eastern woodlands. She seemed to believe they were connected somehow. Another silence, longer this time. "The 7 sisters," Dr. Redbird said finally. Her tone shifted to something like wonder. It was her theory 20 years ago that certain indigenous sacred sites followed a pattern mirroring the Pleiades constellation. The academic community considered it speculative at best. "She has maps," Olivia offered, "carved into the chamber walls with locations marked. And something she called a center stone that supposedly activates a celestial alignment." "Don't touch anything further," Dr. Redbird instructed, her voice now urgent, "especially anything that might be the center stone. If Eleanor was right, if she actually found physical evidence of the 7 sister sites, this could be the most significant archaeological discovery in North America in decades. I'll bring proper documentation equipment and a small team I trust implicitly." After arranging details for the visit, Olivia hung up, unsure whether to feel relieved or overwhelmed. Dr. Redbird's reaction had confirmed the potential significance of what lay beneath their new home, while simultaneously raising the stakes of how they proceeded. That afternoon, Olivia returned to the chamber alone, drawn by an inexplicable need to understand more before experts arrived. The stone disc from Sarah Tanner weighed in her pocket, its purpose now clear. This was the center stone Eleanor had referenced, meant to fit into the circular depression in the chamber floor. Standing before the central stone with its concentric rings of symbols, Olivia held the disc in her palm, studying its intricate carvings. The logical part of her mind, the careful researcher, the responsible parent, urged caution. Wait for the experts. Don't risk damaging evidence of potentially historic significance. Yet another part of her, a part she hadn't known existed until she first descended these stone steps, felt drawn to complete what Eleanor Blackwood had begun. The historian had specified in her journal that the right successor would know how to proceed. Sarah Tanner had said the keys wouldn't work for just anyone. Kneeling beside the circular stone, Olivia examined the central depression more carefully. It matched the dimensions of the disc perfectly, with small notches that would align with the carved patterns. This was no random artifact. It had been created specifically for this purpose, to activate whatever celestial alignment Eleanor had discovered. With careful deliberation, Olivia placed the stone disc into the depression, aligning the sun symbol with a matching carving on the floor. For a moment, nothing happened, and she felt a mixture of disappointment and relief. Then, with a soft but distinct click, the disc settled more deeply into place, and the concentric rings of the floor stone began to rotate slowly, each ring moving in a different direction. Olivia stepped back in astonishment as soft amber light began to emanate from the carved symbols, growing stronger as the rotation continued. The light spread to the wall carvings, illuminating the map symbols one by one in a specific sequence. With each illuminated location, corresponding symbols glowed on the central floor stone, creating what appeared to be star-like patterns connecting the sites. The amber light grew more intense, and Olivia shielded her eyes as it coalesced into a vertical beam rising from the central stone. Within this beam, translucent 3-dimensional images formed what appeared to be landscape features, structures, and geometric patterns floating in the air like a holographic projection, though no modern technology was evident. "Mom!" Lily's voice came from the stairway, startling Olivia so badly she nearly fell. "What's happening? The whole house is vibrating." Olivia turned to see her children standing wide-eyed at the chamber entrance, their faces illuminated by the pulsing amber light. "I don't know," she admitted, both awed and alarmed by what she had triggered. "I think I've activated some kind of alignment system." Max approached fearlessly, his face filled with wonder as he studied the floating images. "It's showing places," he observed, pointing to what appeared to be a mountain range with a structure nestled within it. "Different places all across the map." Lily moved more cautiously to her mother's side. "This isn't historic technology," she whispered. "Nothing from pre-colonial times could create something like this. Unless what Professor Blackwood discovered wasn't just evidence of indigenous astronomical knowledge," Olivia said slowly, watching as the images shifted to show new locations. What if she found evidence of something else entirely, something that would rewrite history in ways even she wasn't prepared to reveal? As the three Mercers stood transfixed by the impossible technology manifesting before them, they didn't notice the subtle vibrations traveling upward from deep beneath the chamber, nor the faint humming that seemed to come from within the stone walls themselves. They couldn't know that similar vibrations were now radiating from 6 other locations, across the eastern woodlands, some in remote wilderness, others buried beneath unremarkable modern structures like their own farmhouse. What Olivia couldn't possibly have anticipated when she placed the center stone in its ancient receptacle was that the activation hadn't just created a map. It had sent a signal. In research facilities, universities, and government installations across the country, sensors designed to monitor seismic anomalies and electromagnetic fluctuations were suddenly registering unprecedented patterns, all emanating from locations that formed a perfect 7-pointed star across the eastern half of North America. And in Ohio, where Dr. Amara Redbird was hastily packing to leave her field site early, a secure phone was ringing. On the other end was a voice she hadn't heard in almost a decade, a colleague from her brief time working with the classified research division of the Smithsonian Institution. "It's activated, Amara," the voice said without preamble. "After all these years, someone has activated the first sister. Please tell me it's you." "Not me," Dr. Redbird replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "But I know where it is. I'm heading there now." "You're not the only one," came the grave response. Every relevant agency from the Archaeological Survey Division to the Department of Indigenous Affairs just went on high alert. Whatever Eleanor Blackwood found, it's just become the highest priority historical site in North America. You need to get there first. What had begun as Olivia Mercer's desperate solution to a housing crisis had now escalated into something that would soon bring archaeologists, historians, and government officials converging on the previously forgotten farmhouse in Crestfall all, seeking to understand the extraordinary technology that no pre-colonial civilization could possibly have possessed, and the 7 interconnected sites that had remained hidden in plain sight for centuries. And at the center of this impending storm stood Olivia and her children, ordinary people who had stumbled upon an extraordinary legacy that was already spiraling far beyond their control. The amber light from the activated chamber gradually dimmed over the following hours, but its effects lingered, both in the subtle vibration that continued to pulse through the farmhouse and in the stunned silence of the Mercer family as they tried to process what they had witnessed. Olivia had ushered the children upstairs after the initial activation, partly out of caution regarding the unknown technology they had encountered, but also from a growing awareness that they needed to prepare for what would inevitably follow. Dr. Redbird would arrive tomorrow, likely with colleagues, and Olivia wanted to document everything properly before outside experts took over. "What exactly did we just see?" Lily asked as they sat around the kitchen table that evening, the generator humming outside to power their single lamp. "That wasn't just a pre-colonial map system. That was something else entirely." "Holograms," Max said, still wide-eyed with excitement. "Like in sci-fi movies, but without any projectors. And it showed real places. I recognized the Appalachian Mountains in one of the images." Olivia nodded slowly. "Whatever it was, it goes far beyond what Professor Blackwood described in her journal. She wrote about a celestial alignment, but Nothing that would explain three-dimensional projections appearing from stone. You don't think ancient indigenous peoples built that, do you? Lily asked, her analytical mind already probing the inconsistencies. I don't know what to think, Olivia admitted. But we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. There could be rational explanations we haven't considered. Like what? Max challenged. Secret technology hidden for thousands of years? Olivia smiled despite her unease. Like sophisticated mechanisms we don't understand yet. History is full of ancient technologies that seemed magical until they were properly studied. Greek fire, Damascus steel, Roman concrete that outperforms modern versions. But light projections from stone? Lily remained skeptical. That's beyond mechanical ingenuity. Before Olivia could respond, headlights swept across the kitchen window as a vehicle turned into their driveway. A moment later, Sarah Tanner was knocking at their door, her weathered face unusually grave. You used the center stone, she said without preamble when Olivia let her in. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Olivia asked, though she suspected. The answer. Every electronic device in my house went haywire about 3 hours ago. Clock radios reset themselves. TV turned on by itself. Even my old flip phone started chiming without any incoming calls. Sarah shook her head. Eleanor said it would happen when the alignment was activated. You know more than you've told us, Olivia observed, gesturing for Sarah to sit at the kitchen table. The older woman sighed heavily, her gaze moving between Olivia and the children. Eleanor shared only fragments with me, and I'm not sure she understood everything herself. But she believed the chamber beneath this house was built long before any recognized indigenous civilization in this region, before the woodland period, before the archaic, before anyone in our history books. By whom? Lily asked the obvious question she never said directly. Always talked around it, used terms like the ancestors or the sky people. I got the impression she was afraid to make specific claims without absolute proof. Sarah's weathered hands fidgeted with her worn wedding ring. But the artifacts she occasionally showed me small items. She felt safe bringing upstairs. They weren't like anything I'd seen in museums. Materials that weren't quite stone or metal. Symbols that didn't match any known language. And this center stone, Olivia pressed, pulling the disc from her pocket. Did she explain its purpose? Only that it would wake the network when the time was right, Sarah replied. She said it was one of 7 and that they were meant to work in concert when all were placed in their proper housings. Olivia felt a chill at the implications. I may have activated something prematurely. Sarah shook her head. Eleanor always said it couldn't happen accidentally. The keys, the center stone, the timing all had to align with the right intent. If you activated it successfully, you were meant to. After Sarah left, having warned them to expect unusual visitors in the coming days, Olivia returned to the chamber alone. The amber light had faded completely, but the disc remained firmly seated in its central depression, the surrounding rings now locked in their new configuration. The wall carvings that had illuminated during the activation sequence now showed subtle changes. New symbols had appeared alongside the original markings, and the map locations were more clearly defined, with what appeared to be coordinates in a notation system she didn't recognize. Olivia carefully photographed everything with her phone, creating a record of the changes. Whatever happened when outside authorities arrived, she wanted her family to maintain some connection to this discovery that had literally appeared beneath their new home. On the modern desk, Eleanor's laptop now displayed a screensaver she hadn't seen before, a slowly rotating pattern of symbols that matched those on the walls. When she touched the keyboard, the screen changed to a password prompt. Olivia tried various combinations based on Eleanor's notes, but nothing worked. Whatever secrets the historian had documented electronically remained locked for now. As she was about to leave the chamber. A faint sound caught her attention, a rhythmic pattern like Morse code tapping from somewhere within the stone walls. Olivia followed the sound to a section of wall that had shown particularly bright illumination during the activation. Running her fingers over the stone, she felt a slight warmth and what might have been a subtle vibration. "What are you trying to tell us?" she whispered to the ancient structure, feeling slightly foolish but unable to shake the sense that the chamber was somehow responsive, almost alive with purpose. Sleep came fitfully that night, her dreams filled with amber light and floating images of landscapes she had never seen but somehow recognized. When morning finally arrived, Olivia felt both exhausted and strangely energized, as if the chamber's activation had synchronized something in her own awareness. She spent the early hours helping the children make the farmhouse more presentable for their coming visitors. Lily attacked the kitchen with determined efficiency, while Max appointed himself guardian of the cellar door, solemnly promising to monitor for further activations. Shortly before noon, the distinctive sound of multiple vehicles on their gravel driveway announced the arrival of Dr. Redbird's team. Olivia had expected a small group of academics, perhaps with some specialized equipment. What she saw instead, as she stepped onto the porch, raised immediate concerns. 3 vehicles had arrived: a modest sedan that she assumed belonged to Dr. Redbird, a large SUV with university markings. The implications hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Whatever had created this chamber and its extraordinary technology predated not just European contact or known indigenous civilizations, but humanity's earliest recorded complex societies. Dr. Chun broke the stunned silence, her voice tightly controlled. "This confirms the necessity for immediate Level 5 containment. All civilian personnel will need to vacate the chamber while we secure the projection mechanism." "That's not going to happen," Olivia stated firmly. Protectiveness for both the chamber and her children overrode any intimidation she might have felt. This technology has existed safely beneath this farmhouse for centuries. It activated because it was meant to, when the proper sequence was followed by the intended recipient. You can't possibly believe Eleanor Blackwood intended this for you specifically, Dr. Chun countered. "You purchased this property by random chance, did I?" Olivia challenged, surprising herself with her certainty. "Out of thousands of properties, I found this one at exactly the time I needed affordable housing. The keys worked for me when the county couldn't find them for 5 years. The center stone activated when I placed it." Dr. Redbird had been studying the star projection with intense concentration. Now she looked up, her expression transformed by a new understanding. "She's right, Victoria," she said to Dr. Chun. "This isn't random." Eleanor believed the 7 sister sites were designed to be rediscovered at a specific time by specific people who would recognize their significance. "That's mystical nonsense," Dr. Chun dismissed. "We're dealing with advanced technology of unknown origin that poses potential national security implications. We're dealing with a historical legacy meant to be found," Dr. Redbird countered. "And I believe Olivia Mercer is part of that intended discovery process." As the 2 women faced off, the star projection above them began to change again. The highlighted stars pulsed more brightly, and new lines formed between them, creating a more complex pattern that somehow seemed familiar to Olivia. "It matches!" Max exclaimed suddenly, pointing between the star map and the symbols on the center stone. "The pattern is the same." He was right, Olivia realized. The stellar configuration matched the central design on the center stone, the stylized sun whose rays formed a perfect circle. But it wasn't a sun at all, she now understood. It was a star map preserved in stone and waiting for the right moment to be activated and understood. Dr. Chun was speaking urgently into a secure phone, requesting immediate deployment of what sounded like a significant government response team. The security consultants had moved to secure the chamber entrance, While the university researchers continued documenting everything with frantic intensity, aware their access might soon be terminated. In the midst of this escalating situation, Olivia felt a strange calm descend over her. Whatever forces had brought her family to this farmhouse, whatever ancient technology now revealed itself beneath their new home, she sensed it was unfolding exactly as intended. Not by Eleanor Blackwood, perhaps not even by the indigenous people she had studied, but by whoever had created these chambers millennia ago, creators who had embedded star maps from 8,000 years in the past and scattered 7 interconnected sites across the eastern woodlands in a precise geometric pattern. The amber light from the projection suddenly intensified again, and a new symbol appeared at the center of the star map, a simple spiral that began to rotate slowly. As it turned, the same spiral pattern appeared briefly on Olivia's palm, glowing with the same golden luminescence, visible to everyone in the chamber. Dr. Chun stared in shock. What just happened? I think, Olivia said slowly, looking at the fading mark on her hand, it just confirmed that I'm supposed to be here. What she couldn't possibly have anticipated when she first turned the key in the heavy cellar door was that this moment, standing in a chamber of impossible technology as government agents prepared to seize control, was actually just the beginning of a much larger revelation. The 7 sisters were awakening across the continent, each site responding to the initial activation she had triggered, each preparing to reveal its portion of a message left by visitors who had reached North America thousands of years before conventional history recorded. And somehow, through a chain of circumstances that seemed too perfect to be coincidental, Olivia Mercer and her children now stood at the center of a discovery that would soon challenge humanity's understanding of not just its history, but potentially its origins. The 24 hours following the star map's appearance in the chamber became a whirlwind of activity that transformed the Mercer family's quiet farmhouse into something resembling a secure research facility. Despite Dr. Chun's initial insistence on evacuation, Olivia had refused to leave, standing her ground with unexpected determination. This property is mine, and whatever message is being revealed here seems specifically intended for me, she had stated firmly. We're staying. Dr. Redbird had unexpectedly supported her position, arguing that the chamber's apparent recognition of Olivia suggested her presence might be crucial to understanding its full purpose. After several tense phone calls with superiors, Dr. Chun reluctantly agreed to a compromise. The Mercer family could remain, but under conditions that included constant security presence and government oversight of all chamber activities. By the following morning, the farmhouse was surrounded by temporary structures, equipment tents, security checkpoints, and mobile research units. Teams of specialists arrived hourly, each bringing expertise in fields ranging from archaeoastronomy to quantum physics. Local residents watched from a distance as their forgotten rural community suddenly filled with government vehicles and satellite communication arrays. Inside the house, Olivia insisted on maintaining some semblance of normal family life despite the extraordinary circumstances. Lily had established a makeshift study area in the dining room, balancing her delayed school preparations with meticulous documentation of everything happening in the chamber. Max had appointed himself liaison between the various research teams, his natural curiosity and disarming questions often eliciting information that more guarded adults might have withheld. In the chamber itself, the star projection had remained constant for hours after its initial appearance, then suddenly collapsed back into the central stone. Since then, the center stone had pulsed with intermittent amber light, as if conserving energy between communications. The ceiling symbols remained, however, now recognized by linguists as a previously unknown script that combined elements from multiple ancient writing systems. Jason Walker had refused to leave, parking his station wagon at Sarah Tanner's property and establishing an informal information exchange with the growing number of local residents curious about the activity at the Blackwood farmhouse. Despite Dr. Chun's attempts to establish a media blackout, word was spreading through alternative news channels and academic networks that something unprecedented had been discovered. On the morning of the second day, as Olivia sat at her kitchen table reviewing the complex access agreements Dr. Chun had presented for her signature, a commotion outside drew her attention. Through the window, she saw a sleek black helicopter landing in the far field, kicking up dust that swirled around the security perimeter. "Who's that?" Max asked, peering over her shoulder as a group of individuals in formal attire emerged from the aircraft. "More government officials, I imagine," Olivia replied wearily. The constant influx of personnel with increasingly higher security clearances had become a pattern. Dr. Chun appeared at the kitchen door, her usual composure notably heightened. "Ms. Mercer, the director of the National Indigenous Heritage Foundation, has arrived with representatives from several key agencies. They've requested an immediate briefing on the chamber and its capabilities." More accurately, came a new voice from behind Dr. Chun. "We've requested to meet the woman who has successfully activated a technology that has confounded our best experts for decades." Into the kitchen stepped a distinguished Native American woman in her 60s, her silver-streaked black hair worn in a traditional style and her bearing suggesting both tribal authority and political influence. Dr. Nora Whitecloud, director of the National Indigenous Heritage Foundation, was a legendary figure in archaeological circles. A former tribal leader who had transitioned to guiding national research policy with remarkable effectiveness. "Dr. Whitecloud," Olivia acknowledged, recognizing her from news coverage of indigenous rights initiatives. "I wasn't aware my cellar had attracted attention at your level." "Your cellar, Ms. Mercer, has triggered alerts across systems monitoring unusual energy signatures throughout North America." Dr. Whitecloud's direct gaze held neither the academic curiosity of Dr. Redbird nor the controlling authority of Dr. Chun, but something more complex, a combination of ancestral wisdom and what might have been reverence. "More importantly, it has confirmed the existence of something my people have been tracking for many generations." Olivia felt a chill at this revelation. "We provided occasional guidance to your evolutionary path, subtle adjustments to accelerate cognitive development, spiritual awareness, and cooperative capacity. The humans who discovered our monitoring chambers in later millennia, those your traditions called the Ancient Ones, found only remnants of our presence, misinterpreting our technology through their cultural framework." The revelation stunned everyone present. Dr. Redbird looked particularly shaken. Her life's work on indigenous archaeoastronomy suddenly recontextualized as humans encountering the remnants of an extraterrestrial monitoring system. "The third and most critical component of our message," the figure continued, "concerns your immediate future. Your species has reached the development threshold where planetary stewardship capabilities must align with technological advancement. The grandmother network has been programmed to activate when both technological capacity and ecological crisis reach specific parameters." The projection changed again, showing Earth with visualization of climate patterns, resource distributions, and energy systems, all depicted with a clarity and comprehensiveness beyond current human modeling capabilities. This network now offers access to specific technologies and knowledge systems that will enable transition to sustainable planetary management without civilizational collapse. The quantum resonance connection established with the primary receiver. The figure nodded toward Olivia, provides the necessary biological authentication to unlock these knowledge repositories. Olivia's mind reeled at the implications. "Why me? I bought this house by chance." The projected figure's expression conveyed something like gentle amusement. "There's no randomness in quantum-entangled systems. Your biological signature carries specific markers. Our system was designed to recognize descendants of those we interacted with directly thousands of years ago." Your arrival at this specific node when global conditions reached critical parameters was statistically inevitable within our models. Dr. Whitecloud stepped forward again. What exactly are you offering humanity through this network? A transition path, came the simple reply. Technologies and methodologies that will allow continuation of your civilization while restoring planetary equilibrium. Not solutions imposed, but tools offered. Your species must choose how to implement them and evolve your social structures accordingly. The implications hung in the air. An advanced civilization had established contact with Earth thousands of years ago, left monitoring technology that had been misinterpreted by later indigenous cultures, and programmed it to activate when humanity reached both the crisis point and technological readiness to receive their message. And somehow, through what the beings presented as quantum inevitability, but felt to Olivia like impossible coincidence, her family had become the key to unlocking this ancient communication. The primary receiver must now make a choice. Projected figure continued, focusing its attention directly on Olivia. The grandmother network can be fully activated, making its knowledge repositories available to your species through controlled access points, or it can be returned to dormancy for another cycle if you judge your civilization unready for this transition. Olivia felt the weight of every gaze in the room: government officials, scientists, security personnel, and most importantly, her children who had appeared at the top of the stairs, watching with wide-eyed wonder. "This shouldn't be my decision," she protested. "I'm not qualified to make choices that affect all of humanity." "Yet you are the one the system has recognized," the figure replied simply. "The quantum resonance pattern cannot be falsified or transferred. This is the security protocol designed to prevent misuse of the knowledge being offered." In that moment of impossible pressure, Olivia looked to her children. Lily's expression was thoughtful but resolute, while Max's held simple trust in his mother's judgment. She thought of their journey to this place, the financial struggles, the desperate housing search, the seeming misfortune that had led them to this remote farmhouse. Had it all been leading to this moment, guided by quantum patterns established millennia ago? "If I agree to activation," she asked carefully, "who controls the knowledge being offered? I won't be responsible for creating new power imbalances or technologies that could be weaponized." The projected figure nodded as if expecting this concern. "The network's design prevents unilateral control. Knowledge repositories can only be accessed through consensus protocols requiring collaboration across cultural and national boundaries. The primary receiver serves as facilitator, not controller." Dr. Whitecloud stepped closer to Olivia. "Whatever you decide, you should know that the implications extend far beyond any single nation's interests. If this is genuine, and every indication suggests it is, this communication represents the most significant moment in human history." Olivia took a deep breath, centering herself amidst the extraordinary circumstances. She thought of Eleanor Blackwood, who had spent decades meticulously documenting this chamber without fully understanding its true origins or purpose. She thought of her children's future on a planet facing ecological challenges that sometimes seemed insurmountable. And she thought of the strange journey that had brought her here, broke, desperate for housing, and seemingly by chance to the exact place where this ancient message had waited for millennia. "I accept the activation," she said finally, her voice steady despite the magnitude of her decision. "But I want guarantees that this knowledge will be shared equitably, not hoarded or weaponized." The projected figure inclined its head in what appeared to be approval. "The network's design incorporates these principles. Appropriate safeguards are embedded within the technology itself." With these words, the amber light throughout the 7 columns intensified dramatically. Olivia's palm burned briefly as the spiral symbol flared one final time, then faded into her skin like a barely visible birthmark rather than disappearing completely. "The grandmother network is now fully activated," the figure announced. Knowledge repositories at all 7 nodes can be accessed through appropriate protocols. The primary receiver and her genetic lineage will retain authentication authority for the standard cycle of 1,000 years. Before anyone could react to this astonishing time frame, the projection began to fade. We wish your species success in its evolutionary journey. The choices ahead remain yours, as they must for true development to occur. We will monitor your progress through the network and await potential direct communication when you have successfully implemented the initial transition technologies. With these final words, the projection disappeared entirely. The amber column contracted and then dissipated, leaving the farmhouse hallway in sudden ordinary daylight. Outside, reports came in that the other 6 columns had similarly disappeared, though instruments detected continued energy signatures at each location, suggesting dormant but active systems. In the stunned silence that followed, Max broke the tension with characteristic directness. "Mom, does this mean we're staying in the farmhouse?" The simple question, so domestic amidst the cosmic implications of what they had just experienced, broke the spell of solemnity. Olivia laughed, drawing her children into her arms. "Yes, Max, I think we're definitely staying." In the months that followed, the Mercer farmhouse became the center of unprecedented international attention. Representatives from major world governments, scientific institutions, and eventually the United Nations established protocols for studying and accessing the knowledge. Repositories now active at all 7 nodes of what was being called the Grandmother Network. True to the projected being's explanation, Olivia discovered that her authentication was required for initial access at each site, necessitating travel to all 7 locations scattered across the eastern woodlands. More surprisingly, the knowledge contained in these repositories could only be extracted when teams with diverse expertise and cultural backgrounds worked in genuine collaboration. Any attempt at unilateral control or exploitation simply resulted in the systems becoming temporarily dormant. The farmhouse itself was designated a protected heritage site of unprecedented importance. Though Olivia maintained ownership and residence rights through a complex international agreement, research facilities were established nearby rather than directly on the property, preserving the Mercer family's privacy while accommodating the constant flow of researchers seeking access to the chamber. 1 year after the initial activation, the first technological implementations derived from the Grandmother Network's knowledge repositories began field testing atmospheric carbon capture systems based on biological principles far advanced from current human science, water purification methods that required minimal energy input, and agricultural approaches that restored soil health while increasing yields. Each innovation was made freely available through open-source platforms, preventing monopolization by any corporation or nation. For Olivia, the transformation extended beyond the global implications to her personal circumstances. From a struggling single mother facing eviction, she had become what some called humanity's ambassador to its cosmic heritage, a role she accepted with reluctance but growing confidence. The financial struggles that had once consumed her daily life were replaced with the challenge of navigating complex international negotiations while maintaining a somewhat normal life for her children. Lily had embraced the scientific aspects of their new reality, developing a particular interest in the linguistic patterns embedded in the Grandmother Network's communication systems. At 13, she was already collaborating with leading linguists and mathematicians to develop better translation protocols for accessing the repository's knowledge. Max, with his intuitive understanding of patterns, had become something of a prodigy at interpreting the network's geometric interfaces, often seeing connections that trained scientists missed. His education had become thoroughly unconventional, combining standard curriculum with direct mentorship from experts in fields ranging from quantum physics to indigenous knowledge systems. As for Olivia herself, The spiral marking on her palm remained a faint golden pattern visible only in certain light, a permanent reminder of her unexpected role in human history. Dr. Whitecloud had become both colleague and friend, helping navigate the political complexities while ensuring indigenous perspectives remained central to the study of the network's offerings. 1 year after purchasing the shabby farmhouse in a desperate attempt to provide shelter for her family, Olivia stood on the newly restored porch, watching the sunset over fields that now contained both the original agricultural land and cutting-edge research facilities built with careful respect for the rural landscape. Sarah Tanner joined her, the elderly neighbor having become something of a surrogate grandmother to the Mercer children amidst the whirlwind of changes. Eleanor would be pleased, she observed, nodding toward the carefully preserved barn where historical exhibits now detailed both Blackwood's research and the true origins of what she had discovered. She always said the right person would come along when the time was right. I still wonder sometimes if it's all been some elaborate coincidence, Olivia admitted. All the factors that led us here, my job loss, the housing crisis, finding this specific property. Sarah smiled with the wisdom of her years. Perhaps it's both, dear. Perhaps the universe does work in patterns we're only beginning to understand, guiding us to where we need to be through what looks like random chance. But in the ways that matter most, we found exactly what we needed: a home, purpose, and hope for the future, not just for us, but for everyone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the faint amber glow from the chamber below the farmhouse became visible through the cellar, windows a gentle reminder that beneath this ordinary rural dwelling lay an extraordinary connection to the cosmos, awakened by a single mother who had simply been looking for an affordable place to raise her children. What had begun as Olivia Mercer's desperate attempt to solve a housing crisis had evolved into humanity's introduction to its place in a larger cosmic community, a transformation as profound for her family as it was for human civilization itself. And it had all started with a shabby farmhouse purchase that had led to a discovery that indeed stunned not just archaeologists, but the entire world. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.